Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. We've got a couple more minutes before the top of the hour, so we're going to give it until then before we kick off. As a reminder, this meeting is recorded and we're going to post it on the project website just as a informational opportunity for others to learn about Vision 2050, Le Sueur County's comprehensive plan and zoning code update. For those of you that are already in the webinar, if you would be so kind and willing, we would love to know in the chat if you want to type in your name, your location, and any agencies that you might be with or kind of have those agency hats on, whether that's formal or informal, and you're willing to share. We would love to know that in the chat.
So we're about a minute before we can start. Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to wait until 3 o'clock. And as you can see, Sarah has put a question in the chat. For those of you who are not familiar with Teams, it's at the top next to Q&A. It's a little bubble. So we'll give it another, a little bit more. There we are at 3 o'clock. So what we'll do is we'll just wait another 30 seconds and then we'll get started. We have about an hour. So we want to be mindful to get through a lot of the information today and not go overtime because we know you're all busy. So far we have 14 people. What do you think, Sarah? Wait until 3:01?
Yeah, I think that's perfect. So we'll go ahead and get started. We'll have it recorded. So if anybody jumps on a little late, they can always look at the recording afterwards too.
Perfect. Well, here we are at 3:01, so we will get started. As you can see, everyone on the front page, Sarah and I will be presenting an overview of the comprehensive land use plan and zoning code updates that we are working for with Le Sueur County, and some of the staff members are here with us today as well. Thanks for spending the next hour with us. We're excited to embark on this journey with you. We are recording the session. We are going to be using the chat, so please monitor the chat throughout the meeting. We are going to, if we can go to the next slide, Sarah.
Sorry, I'm gonna pause you really quick. It sounds like for some folks the chat feature is turned off.
Oh, okay.
So if the chat feature is turned off for anybody, please feel free to use the Q&A. We can see that Q&A, so we'll monitor that with any questions that you might have. And if you aren't able to use the chat feature and still want to use that Q&A to just submit like your name and your agency or your location, that would be much appreciated too.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah, for catching that. So really this meeting is an overview of the project, but it's mostly for agencies. We've been doing several meetings. Staff has gone to in-person meetings. We've done some virtual ones. So we are trying to get a cross-section of the county. Of course, it's a big territory. So for this specific meeting, we are talking to townships, cities, lake associations, and local agencies. So today we'll go through a project overview, the scope of what we're doing, the timeline, and ultimately what are the deliverables that the county will receive. We'll go through the engagement and how we are reaching out to the community, what we've done so far, and then we'll have a bit of an interactive session with Menti. It's just 2 questions, but everyone will be able to participate with either their phones or by just opening another window online, and then we'll be able to see the results in real time, which should be fun. And then we'll talk about what are the next steps, how to stay involved, and then hopefully we will have some time at the end to answer any of your questions. Yeah, next slide. Wonderful. So for those of you who are not aware, the Sueur County does have a current comprehensive plan. It's a little bit old, so they have hired Bolton and Mank to update it to be able to reflect what the community needs today, but also looking forward to 2050. That is why this project is called Vision 2050. We are looking forward to 25 years and determining how and where, at what density and intensity the community wants to grow. Part of that process is looking at data and all of the studies that have been done so far, but it's also taking in the input from the community. And so with our expertise in those 2 components, we draft maps, we draft text, and provide ultimately a report with maps that provide a blueprint for how and where the community wants to grow. So we also look at regulations. What are the other regulations, for example, MPCA or DNR. And so we try to align all of our work with what's happened recently in the legislation as well. And then we go out to the community and make sure that we are reaching as many folks as we can from different walks of life and gain their input. The timeline really for the engagement, there's going to be 3 phases. As you can see, the first one is starting now, and we will be talking a little bit more in detail as to what the engagement consists of. Sarah will go through that in some later slides. The second phase is really more in the spring, after we've done our existing data and condition assessment and started to gain some input. In the spring, we will be sharing the initial and preliminary drafts of the work so that we can get more feedback from the community and refine the deliverables further. And then finally, in the spring of, excuse me, that should be summer of 2025, we hope to be able to button this up and really integrate all of the feedback and provide final deliverables to the county for adoption. So as you can see, the schedule, we started in September. It goes all the way through October, but the bulk of the engagement starts now and goes through the spring and the summer. On the left, you will see the items within our scope. We are going to do a project website. We are going to do an interactive survey, social media articles, meetings with focus groups, meetings with individual developers as well. We'll have public meetings, and also we will take all of that information and provide an analysis to integrate into the plan. The plan itself has, under task 4, very specific components to it. There is a portion of it that is the vision and the goals, and the comprehensive plan is very much about goal setting, and it's a policy document. And then there are chapters that talk about community profile, which is the background, the existing conditions, and a lot of the trends that we are seeing. And then the natural resources will encompass water, soils, agricultural land to be preserved, and all of those natural resources that are very valuable to the county. Land use talks more about the categories of land use in itself from a planning standpoint. Where is commercial, industrial, where is residential, and at what density do they occur? So all of these components, all of these chapters that you see before you will have a map associated with it to be able to talk about locations. We will then draft these chapters. We will solicit feedback, integrate that feedback, and then go for adoption. Next slide, please. So in terms of the project deliverables, we looked into 13 studies that the county had already conducted. They spent a lot of great time and invested in really looking at various aspects from transportation to water quality to infrastructure. And so we've taken all of those studies so that we do not duplicate any efforts and use it as a starting point and not create any conflicts in our work. So that was the first thing we did. We then looked at the data research, the demographics, the trends. We are seeing some new emerging trends in housing. We are seeing, of course, legislative things that are happening like cannabis, tiny homes. So we are looking at not just the past and the current, but also looking forward as to what is needed by the market. We will be drafting a vision statement as part of the comprehensive plan. Currently, there isn't one for the county, so we will share a draft of that with you in a later slide. And as we talked about, we will do the chapters, but probably one of the most important maps in the comprehensive plan is the future land use map. That shows where we are headed to grow in the next 25 years. It's not going to happen overnight. So that is something that is critical that can be used today. The current land use map will not necessarily take any of the entitlements away. What we will do is create a future land use map that will be able to transition to over time. Then we will update the zoning code. After we go through this process of visioning and getting input and doing some data research, we will start having workshops. At those workshops, we will be separating that out between a steering committee that is focused on the comprehensive plan, so more of the policy document, and then a steering committee that is very much focused on the nuts and bolts of how that vision and how those policies are implemented, which is the zoning code, right? The zoning code has the procedures, the districts, and the standards.
Hey, how are you? You're the one that's been coming in and talking to me about the cleaning, right?
We may want to mute everyone as we're doing this presentation. Thank you. And so these are the components of what we are going to be providing as a deliverable in our plan, but we are certainly working on two major reports. The zoning code will be updated to make it more friendly and readable, more tables, more visual, less of the text, and simplifying how a user navigates that code, and then also providing a comprehensive plan with the chapters and the maps. And with that, I'll hand it over to Sarah.
Awesome, thanks. So the very first part of the comprehensive plan, as Moira was mentioning, was reviewing all of the great past work that's happened. And a lot of that we directly informed how we started thinking about the vision for Le Sueur County in 2050. And we picked 2050 because when we think about a comprehensive plan, we think about a 20 to 25 year outlook. So who is Le Sueur? What's happening in Le Sueur? What's the vision for Le Sueur in the year 2050 between now and then? There are some goals that were relevant to visioning back in the 2007 comprehensive plan, which is what's currently adopted and in place. So it was around protecting agricultural resources, conserving natural resources, improving water quality, supporting housing development, both in an urban and a rural setting, collaborating with cities on land use planning. And I know one of the key values that the county has had in this process, especially at the beginning as we really kick this process off and this project gets started, is that collaboration, not just with cities, but with local agencies, which is why we're putting on a series of these webinars throughout this next year. Protecting aggregate resources, developing county parks and open spaces, and adopting the uniform building code were all goals from the existing comprehensive plan. Which brings us to what we have started on as a draft vision statement. There are two steering committees that Moira mentioned, the zoning and the comprehensive plan steering committees as part of this project alongside county staff and some others who have all reviewed this. And we would love to know whether you can access the chat or Q&A, what you think of our draft vision statement to date. So right now, this would be the vision statement that will be memorialized in the final Vision 2050 comprehensive plan. The statement is, Le Sueur County is a resilient and collaborative community that values its heritage, preserves agriculture, restores natural ecosystems, and safeguards water resources, while fostering responsible growth and partnerships to continue providing high-quality services and infrastructure for a vibrant future. And why we want to start out with a vision and a comprehensive plan is because it really is our North Star when we go through this whole, not just this whole process, but after the process and as staff are evaluating future plans and policies and development proposals, other planning efforts, whatever it might be, this comprehensive plan, really the whole document serves as that guide for the future. But this vision statement is kind of where it all starts. And it gives us that path forward as we're analyzing data and gathering community feedback and thinking about how that information directly influences the outcome of this project. So if you have any comments, questions, ponderings, curiosities, as you see this statement, we would love your feedback again in the chat or in the Q&A. And I'll leave it up for just another few moments here before we shift to the next thing. And again, these slides, both the slides and the recording of this video will be sent out as well. So if you have questions, comments, both about the vision statement as well as other things that you want to share afterwards as you're thinking about this presentation or just don't feel comfortable sharing in this setting right now, there'll be contact information for you to send those comments to Moira or myself in the future after this.
And Sarah, we have a comment that says, that's asking who developed the initial draft vision.
Yeah, great question. So the draft vision was something we drafted a few different proposals, some draft language, because it's always easier to start with something to react to than a blank page, right? And that crafting happened by reviewing all of those previous studies that have happened. So by culminating that, we then presented it to the steering committees, the comprehensive plan and the zoning steering committees, and county staff for additional feedback. So this is kind of the next layer of feedback that we're looking for on the vision statement specifically is with you guys. All right, we're going to keep going. The next, we talked about kind of engaging agencies as a strong value of the county as we're going through this process. And a lot of that is memorialized in the engagement plan. We don't want to just involve agencies. We want to engage the whole community. So an engagement plan really helps provide us that key messaging. Again, there's this emphasis particularly on engagement with cities and township partners, as well as agencies like school districts and watersheds and local lake associations, all sorts of different kind of local organizations and communities. We have strategies based on the community profile. Later, we'll talk about what that community profile looks like, but we want to make sure that we're reaching folks that make the most sense in Le Sueur County. And we're really in phase one right now both for the engagement plan, but just as the project overall. And phase one is really about sharing about the project. So we've had some communications go out that the county is pursuing this project, that it's actively started. You'll see some more communication here in the very near future about the public survey that'll be coming out. And that's really about gathering kind of that initial baseline of issues and opportunities in the county. And that's really the focus of phase one, is identifying those issues and opportunities and educating people about the process. As part of our engagement, we also have some steering committees, and we've planned for some focus groups. So we've had our first in-person workshop with our steering committees, again, both our zoning and our comprehensive steering committee groups. Those are two separate groups. There's a little bit of overlap, mostly around county staff and some appointed officials. But there are two kind of different lenses that we're looking at when we're talking with those particular groups. They'll meet 3 times throughout the process. They're local stakeholders, again, with a mix. We looked at a mix of geographies, a mix of interests. I know we've added on a couple people, so we're excited for and grateful for everybody's involvement and participation in those steering committees. We also see them as ambassadors of the project. We know that we're going to be most successful in communicating about the project through trusted voices in the community. And so we really look to those steering committee members also as an opportunity to help us spread more information and education about the project. And they help provide oversight throughout the process. So they've seen the full engagement plan alongside county staff. They've helped guide this vision, and they'll continue to be kind of that guide and review committee throughout the process beyond just the county board or county staff. Those two entities are also involved, but not the only ones. We have 4 focus groups that are planned as part of this process. They're not all planned at this point. In fact, really none of them are. We're just getting started, but we've identified some key groups that we think will focus trying to engage through these focus groups. So one of those is our agriculture and natural resources group. We also want to engage with small businesses and large employers in the community. We want to have a focus group that's just open and available for anybody that wants to join us. So just kind of that citizen group. And then we also want to make sure we're engaging with developers. We know that developers in particular can be tricky to get in a group to talk a whole lot to the detail that we need them to. So we often shape that particular focus group as individual interviews, but we make sure we engage with multiple developers and not just 1 or 2. These focus groups will be a part of that overall engagement plan. They'll influence and shape how we think about the input and the data as we're going through the project. That information will also be provided directly to the comp plan, or that input will be directly influencing the comp plan or the zoning code updates as appropriate. The other thing, I'll pause there for a moment. The other thing that I like to share about engagement, especially as we're kicking off a project, is we take a really iterative approach to our engagement. So we don't just want to extract the information from residents and stakeholders and agencies, but we want to make sure that we're sharing back what we're hearing as a gut check to make sure that we haven't missed something, or we're not putting the wrong emphasis on something. The steering committees have already experienced that after our in-person meeting. We just met again with the comprehensive plan steering committee yesterday, and we'll meet with the zoning steering committee next week to really just share back, here's what we heard during those in-person workshops, here's the work we've been doing, so that we have those check-ins every step of the way. Then we want to talk a little bit about the work we've done so far. We're a few months in as we're getting started here. So I know Moira talked about completing the audit of those existing studies. We've also started to do some community profile work. We're going to take a peek at that next, just to show you kind of what the data says about Sueur County. We also have had these workshops that we've talked about quite a bit with the steering committees. We've done a few different presentations, one with the Planning Commission for Sueur County, one with townships. The townships had a meeting that had information about the comprehensive plan at it. And the county also held an event December 4th, and we had some information about the comprehensive plan at that event too. I think there might actually be some overlap between some folks that were at that event and on this call right now. So thank you to everybody that has been listening and looking for information about the plan. We have a project website that has been launched. You can see it there at the bottom, and we'll also stick the link to that in the chat. And I'll also stick it in the Q&A here shortly. So that you all make sure you have that. I think the number one place that you can go and share with people if you did nothing else would be to go to the project website. We're always going to be updating that throughout the project. And so that'll always be a great place to look at what are upcoming events. The survey will be linked there here in the near future. Amongst other things, we'll put engagement summaries on the website. We'll put the community profile on the website, any sort of documentation or process or upcoming events related to the project you can find on that website. We also had our first pop-up event. So as part of our engagement plan, we don't just want to host our own events, but we want to meet people where they might already be gathered. So the city of Le Sueur had their Christmas in the Valley event last week on the 6th. So thank you to the city staff that were so generous in having us at that event with a trifold and some flyers to hand out to people. I know we were able to get about 75 flyers out to folks that were at that event, which was really great. So we're excited to be out in the community and excited to be sharing more about this project. I'm going to pause there and let you digest what's on the screen. We'll walk through it as I put the project website just in the chat. All right. So our community profile is really the first piece of information, and this is only half of it. We'll look at the next half here shortly. The community profile is kind of our first take at really demographic data is what we're looking at when we think about the community profile. This community profile, again, influences our engagement plan, how we start to shape that communication strategy, and also just how we're thinking about the community overall. What are some trends? What are some things that stand out to us when we think about who Le Sueur County is on paper? So just over 29,000 population, an average household size of about 2.5 people per household, a median age of 41.7, and 22% of households with a disability. So we're thinking about, a slightly older population, a slightly higher disability rate, right? So we want to make sure that we're providing materials in a way that's accessible. About a little over 1,000 businesses in the county, about 80% home ownership, 81%. That's pretty typical. $689 median rental cost for a home that somebody rents. About 25.5% of people have earned a bachelor's degree or higher. That doesn't include people who maybe have started some higher education, but just haven't completed that degree, some of that kind of stuff. And 99% white. The second half, if I can get it to go here, sorry. There we go. The second half of the community profile talks more about kind of the economic development side of who Le Sueur County is as we know it right now. So an average commute time of 25.8 minutes. So that's your average person commuting to their job. That is a little bit higher. Usually we say people like to see that range at about 20 minutes or less. But knowing LeSueur County, knowing its position between the Twin Cities Metro and Mankato, that number also doesn't surprise us a whole lot, which is sometimes a good gut check too, right? Does the data match what we know? About 56% of jobs in the county are classified as white-collar jobs. About 8% of households live below the poverty line, with a median household income of about $80,000. I think the most interesting thing that stood out to us is this bottom graphic. And what it's showing is the inflow and outflow of employees on any kind of average day. So about 2,700 people that live in LeSueur County also work in LeSueur County, whereas about 3,500 people come to LeSueur County for work on a daily basis but don't live there. And about 9,200 people live in LeSueur County but work outside of the county. Again, maybe not information that is surprising knowing the position geographically of LeSueur County, but a much higher outflow than what we see in a lot of other communities. And so this starts to help us think about, what are strategies and what are the goals of the county, knowing this information, and that'll start to influence some of those policy decisions and strategies and goals that we set. Are there any questions on this, things that surprise you, or anything that you want to talk about here? And Moira, feel free to chime in if I forgot anything. All right, seeing none, again, you're going to get these slides so you can see the stuff again. I'm going to pass it back to Moira to talk about land use and zoning.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. So currently, the 2007 comprehensive plan that is adopted does not have land use in it. So we will be creating land use categories. And for those of you who are not planners, land use is a hierarchy above zoning. So we certainly have current zoning as a code, and you can see that under the existing list. It is quite complex. We are going to see if there are opportunities for simplification, and also to reflect what the current community wants since 2007. It's been a while. So we will be creating the land use categories. And the reason for that is that within that, we prescribe the densities. So the land use in itself as a document is more of a policy document, but that is where those densities live. And it's a really important tool because it's not just a policy and framework and decision-making document of where we grow and at what intensity we grow. It's also a document that gets used by various departments to establish, for example, where to plan and fund infrastructure. Typically, the engineers look at connections, residential unit connections, to be able to see how to plan for capacities and levels of service for roads and sewer and et cetera. Even though those items are under the jurisdiction of the cities, as cities grow and as the county grows as well, it is a good conversation of cooperation between the cities and the county. So we will be including those land categories, those densities, and then simplifying the zoning code, as you can see on the right-hand side. Any questions on this? I know this can be kind of technical and not as fun. It's a little dry. Are there any questions on land use versus zoning? And if you do have those questions, feel free to contact us even by email. Happy to chat through it. Next slide, Sarah. So as part of what we will do in the comprehensive plan is create a future land use map. That is the vision of what kind of categories of land use, what kind of land, is it commercial, is it industrial, is it civic, is it residential, what kind of land will be in what locations. And so that's why it's called the 2050 Future Land Use Map. This map, upon adoption, can be used in its present time after it's adopted officially. And so it offers more flexibility beyond what is the current zoning map and the current land use map, which we will be creating, offers just an additional option. So folks can come in and apply for the future uses that are shown, but they still have to go through the official public hearings procedures to accomplish those changes. It is a very complex map, so of course it will not be presented this way. We just started working on this, and we will be presenting it in enlarged maps so that one can look at it in more detail. And obviously digitally, it will be a little bit easier to zoom in and out. So everything we do will have a paper component and also a digital component. So this is the fun part, hopefully. So you're actually going to pull out your phones or open a new window. We are going to paste in the chat and the Q&A a link to make it easier for you to join the survey. It is just 2 questions, so it shouldn't take too long. We really want your insight on where you think growth should be and also what the priorities should be. I'm just pasting that.
For those of you that it's easier on your phone, you can also open up your camera and hover, just have your camera kind of look at that QR code to scan that, and that should bring you to the website as well.
And we'll give you time to do this, Sarah. What do you think? Couple minutes?
Yeah, I think we've got time. So
we've got time. Okay, good. And what I will do is open up, whenever we're ready, I will open up the page that shows the results instantaneously. So as you start to provide your input, it will live show us where your opinions stand. So I will share, Sarah, just while we're doing that. Hopefully everyone has the instructions.
that sounds great.
You think it's okay to switch over to the?
Yeah,
Okay.
I do.
Sarah, can you
Looks like we've got
see? Okay,
a couple responses so far.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
There comes some more.
Oh, we have 13 people participating. That's great.
What are we seeing so far?
Yeah, so can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So far for the first question, which is what initiatives should be prioritized to support local businesses, attract new employers, and prepare the workforce for the future? People were allowed to pick 3. And so the number 1 is support small business financing and grants. That is ahead currently. Followed by and tied with business recruitment and retention programs, and partnerships between schools and local businesses for internships and apprenticeships. And the reason we ask this question is because of the data that Sarah was discussing of inflow versus outflow. A lot of folks are leaving 9,700 to find employment outside of the county. So what can we do to keep those people living and working within the county? Number 3 would be, the number 3 strategy would be to work on marketing and promotion of local businesses. So very much focused on small businesses, local businesses, supporting them with financing and grants, and working on that labor force skill development. The last one is the least popular is the development of co-working spaces and business incubators, which would be the kind of the physical building that would house those activities. And so the other one that also is tied with 6, the number 6 is to support the early childhood education and of course childcare services. So as the parents are working, they need to have the support with coverage with their childcare. And that certainly goes hand in hand with housing. Childcare, housing, and employment always works together. I don't know, Sarah, any other comments that you are seeing from the current responses?
No, I think that's great. I think the other reason we wanted to really uplift some of these economic development questions, you'll see some in the public survey itself as well, is because of the county's new economic development position. And so being able to support their staff as they're kind of building out what does that look like specifically for Le Sueur County and where do you start? Economic development can be such a big all-encompassing type of role. And so helping provide some direction on what's going to resonate best and what does the county or what does the county as a whole support for priorities in that area, I think is always important. So this will directly influence that work.
Yeah. Is everyone have 2 questions in their survey? I'm not seeing any participants in the second one. Could be a glitch within the, I'm going to refresh. Yeah, so we're not seeing any responses on the second question, which was a ranking of what extent we agree with the, yeah.
I think on their end, Trevor says that it says slides need to be changed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's what Corey sees too.
Okay, well, we will have to fix that one slide.
Oh, just refresh now. So Corey, does that work now?
Nope, same one, sorry.
Still same.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's okay.
well,
We'll just do the one question.
Yes. Well, we need some, right, we need to rely on technology. So this is just a great reminder. All right, Sarah, I will stop sharing and see if I can fix this, but I think we can proceed.
Yeah, that sounds great. Awesome. Well, thank you all for answering our one question. I know some of you answered a question if you were at the county event, and that information that we received there too was, it was great to see some kind of live feedback come back from that event to start helping us think about next steps. So this is kind of the end of what we have, at least for our formal presentation. We still have about 20 minutes left in our time together. So we'll also have some time for, more dialogue and answering any questions for folks that want to stay on after this portion. So we just wanted to uplift some next steps, ways to stay involved. I know we have some great agency leaders and residents that are eager to kind of stay a part of the process along the way, which is always wonderful to see. That doesn't happen in every community, and so it's always fun to work in the communities where folks are most interested in being engaged. So next steps are really going to be based around this public survey that we've mentioned. Everything's on track right now for it to launch tomorrow. In the event you don't see information tomorrow, know that it's coming. It'll come first thing next week. So the public survey is really going to be The key input and kind of last piece of input that we're really looking for as part of the phase 1 engagement. Again, not the last opportunity for input, but that kind of all-encompassing area where we're really going to look for robust engagement as part of phase 1 when we're gathering issues and opportunities. After we complete our phase 1 engagement, which will also include a couple of the focus groups to start, we're going to start with the agriculture and natural resources focus group and the large and small business focus group. So if you know of folks that would be interested in participating in that, we'll also share about those focus groups through the communication channels, which includes the email list we have for our local agencies. Those will be open to anybody who's willing and interested to participate in those conversations. We're going to start thinking about growth scenarios. So when Moira talks about the future land use map and densities and some of that kind of information, we want to start thinking about those growth scenarios, which are going to be coupled with an interactive mapping survey that we will share live here after the turn of the year. So that is to come. But again, another opportunity for input to be watching for. You can subscribe for updates on the website. There's 2 different platforms you can subscribe to, one for email updates and one for text message updates through the county system. Both are great ways. Every time we send out some sort of information update, we'll send information through both of those channels. When the survey does come up, we would certainly encourage you to take the public survey, and we would also encourage you to share the project with your networks. What we find most successful is when those kind of e-blasts can really get in directly into people's email inboxes. So if you as a community or an agency have an e-newsletter or some sort of email chain that you're maybe a part of through a volunteer organization that would have some interest in sharing about the project or something like that, we would certainly encourage and greatly appreciate your support in helping us share about the project and about the opportunities for input. Again, you can always direct people to the project website. That'll be a key place for people to find information. And we'll also have surveys available on paper. So just like Moira said, everything will be kind of in two ways. We're going to start by sharing those paper copies at the county, but if there are other communities and places that we can have paper copies, we're certainly happy to provide those. The other thing we'd like to do is disseminate like some posters, some table tents. We've found a lot of success, especially this time of year as we start kind of gearing up for Lent season and things happening in person at restaurants and churches. We would love help distributing any sort of poster or in-person material. If you've got key community places that you think would be great to have some information at, we'd be happy to supply materials for that to happen. And with that kind of ends our presentation. For now, we will have a future local agency webinar again here, probably in a quarter or 2. What we'd like to do is have some draft chapters available for folks to respond to and have dialogue around at our next webinar in a few months. Moira, is there anything that I'm missing?
Well, we can certainly take questions, but I was thinking of sharing the screen back to the second question. And since there's only 4 bullet points, I was able to put the screenshot in the chat, but because the Q&A will not take a screenshot, I'm going to share my screen if that's okay. And if folks could just put in there number 1 through 4, whichever is your priority. So I'm putting the instructions in the Q&A. I will share my screen. And if you could pick one priority over all of them, that kind of gives us where the focus areas are. And I will read them. They are bullet points because of the limitation of the program, but we'll call the first one number 1. More resources should be allocated to protect and improve water quality in local lakes and streams. If that is your favorite, please put number 1 in the chat or the Q&A. The second statement is community education programs on water conservation practices should be expanded. If that's your favorite, please pick number 2. Sustainable land use practices should be promoted to balance development and environmental preservation. If that is the one you agree with most, please put number 3. And then the last one is number 4. Environmental consideration should not limit development and economic growth. So that would, if that is your most important out of these 4, please put number 4. Again, what we're trying to do is really figure out the balance between preservation, conservation of natural resources, and development, which we need to grow the tax base. And so trying to find where that degree and where that balance is comes from the community. And we're happy to take any questions. We have about, 13 minutes?
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Brian Paulson. I was just wondering, the email I signed up for like these meetings and the other meeting you did with Sueur County, are you going to be sending out emails for people to attend those? Because I don't think I got any unless it's in my junk mail or something for these meetings that you guys are going to be holding.
Are you talking specifically about the local agency webinars?
Yeah, I mean, either the webinars or, I guess I signed up thinking that that would provide information to really anything regarding, the 2050 plan.
Yeah.
Your webinars or events that you guys are going to attend, if you're going to go to a different city, it would be nice to see just, more email blasts of stuff that we can attend or be involved with.
Yeah, for sure. I think some of the reason maybe you haven't seen as many yet is we're just getting started, right? So you'll see some more coming soon. The email blast that you sign up for through the project website, that'll be definitely the main place. But we also have some email lists that we also send out in addition to those Gov Delivery blasts. So the next one we have planned is for the survey. That'll also point folks to the website now that we have some engagement events planned. So I'll make sure that I'll make sure that we also put a nod to checking out in upcoming events as listed on the website too. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is Liz Krochak, Lanesburg Township, and I have a question or comment, I guess, going back to the community profile.
Yeah.
Employment and income key factors, 56% of our workers are white collar workers. So I'm trying to get that in my head. I'm assuming some of our biggest employers in the county are school districts and Sueur County employees, courthouse workers. Is that where the bulk of that 56% white collar workers coming from?
Where do you look like you were
Yeah.
going to take it? Go ahead.
Well, no, I know that we use Esri Business Analyst for this specific data set, and they oftentimes, when it comes to the racial composition, do not reveal the location of where that is taken. So unfortunately, they do it for all sorts of reasons that you can imagine. So we don't have the location of the actual racial composition. However, we can give you the source of the information of where they're taking multiple government data sources. So Liz, we'd be happy to share that with you, but they will not provide the actual location.
Mostly just curiosity.
Yeah, no, that's
I
a
know
great point. Yeah.
We're an agricultural community. We have folks that work in the construction industry. I'm just thinking in my own family and the people that I know.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
absolutely. And business analyst breaks down jobs kind of into 3 key categories. So it has the white collar category, which is the one bullet point we put on the community profile. On the website, there's also, oh boy, I'm trying to remember if we did it for this one. I should probably check myself. If there isn't, we can get up there an interactive community profile where you can actually explore some of this data a little bit deeper for those of you interested. But they have white collar, blue collar, and service jobs. And so, things like those construction jobs are probably going to fall under the blue collar category, versus the white collar category are going to be like what you were talking about, right? Your healthcare positions, probably some school positions, administrative positions, things like that.
That sounds correct.
Great.
Sarah, this is Joe Roby in LeSueur. I'm just going to jump in with a quick one.
Yeah.
Is there a list of the members of the steering committees?
We have not published the names of them, but we have provided folks with kind of the mix of agencies and representation on those. We can make sure they're on the website, but if I know we've gotten that question a few times, so we can also certainly send it out to our local agency group as well, or I can specifically get it to you, Joe, too.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Think what we'll plan to do for follow-up too is the folks that were specifically registered for this webinar, we'll make sure that we send a separate email to them when this video recording doesn't usually take very long to process. So we should be able to get a follow-up email out tomorrow yet. We'll also link to this webinar on the project website, so it's just memorialized there. If you know of other staff or another elected official or somebody who wasn't able to make it, who's interested in this kind of general overview, so we'll make sure, and we'll probably just shrink the video itself to be really the informational piece of it. This Q&A will probably leave off.
And Sarah, I can share the Sueur Comprehensive Land Use Plan webpage just so we all can see it. I know you have the link, but you were trying to
Yeah, that would be great.
reference the interactive data. So when you first land, you will see this beautiful photo, which is actually the Sueur City. And then the why, what is the vision and the why. And then the community profile in itself is interactive. So you can see kind of this where these age groups are. I will click on the question for Liz on the services. It says, how it's broken down, but it does not necessarily say where those folks are located. I'll do the same for the white collar. So it breaks it down per industry sector.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And at the bottom, you can see the source, Liz. It's a composition of various years and then projects forward to 2029.
We have 5 minutes left, which is great timing. Are there any other questions, things that we didn't cover that somebody has curiosity about? All right. If not, thank you all for taking the time to be with us today. Again, we'll follow up specifically with all of you registered and on the call with these materials as soon as they're ready. We'll put them out on the website, and you will be seeing some additional communication in the very near future when we launch that public survey. And we would encourage you, I think we've said this before, but again, I'll reiterate, we would encourage you yourself to take it and then to also share it with folks throughout the county as well.
And also feel free to email us individually. For those of you who don't like the public forum, we're happy to talk to you and take your input that way.
Mm-hmm. And the survey won't just be for folks that live in the county. There's a question. The first question you'll be asked is just kind of what's your relationship to the county? So do you visit? Do you just work? Do you own a business? Do you live there? We're interested in anybody's connection to Le Sueur. With that, we will say thank you.
And give you back 4 minutes. Thanks for all your help today.